Hi, this is Sturdy, and if you happen to tune in the first time of the live video, I'm embarrassed the whole thing crashed. Facebook crashed and I lost it. So this is a bit of a do-over. Here's our mulligan. We're going to talk about recruiting and hiring process, the whole process. Going to go through it fairly quickly, but there are a lot of steps. Take some notes, or if you need help, we're here to help you create it and fill in the details and the gaps. But first off, posting. Posting, you can do, your email blasts, Facebook, job postings on Indeed, on HireMojo, on Craigslist. What you want to do, though, is create a disqualification potential or process there. So you can create questions. You can use an autoresponder if you have an email address to answer these 2 or 3 questions. Why do you want to work with us? Tell me about a time when you exceeded a customer's expectations. Anything like that. What makes that person special? And do they fit or not? If they don't answer the questions, or they don't fit, or like Indeed allows you to ask disqualifying questions, HireMojo allows you to put together a number of other things so you can rate and score, and if they get below a certain score, they go to the no pile, so that's a goodbye. If they pass it, yes, you're getting onto the phone screen. And this will help prevent you, when you're posting a job where you normally get 300 faxed resumes and stuff, from getting that. Maybe you get 10 or 12 that way, but you've got people actually want to spend the time and effort. So phone screen. Phone screen's the next step. If you pass the first submission, you like their answers to the questions, and you notice I haven't talked about their resume, the list of stuff they've done, but you can review that too. That's not something I'm super hot on. I want to know more about them. But the phone screen is going to be something you look at as a structure. You ask a couple questions. You can even ask the same questions, by the way, because you're going to be looking for alignment, congruence. Are they telling you the same story? So are they telling you about that time that customer expectation was exceeded similarly or the same way, or they as they did in the written response? The other thing there is, how articulate are they? Are they going to have to be in front of people and on the phone and that type of thing? Can they handle the unannounced conversation? How do they handle it? And your objective for this, by the way, is to decide whether to interview them or not. It is not to do a full-on interview. Don't get caught on the phone for too long. It should take 5-10 minutes at the most. If the answer is no, it's no. Get them out. Goodbye. Thank you. If the answer is yes, move them on to the interview. Invite them in. You're basically trying to decide whether you want to spend an hour more of your time and another person on your teams with them. So the interview here, what you're looking at doing is really asking questions that are going to tell you more about who they are. We score everybody based on the core values and their match with the core values. We want to do scenarios. Tell us about a time when, or what if this happened? What would you do? That type of stuff. And we're going to rank them according to the core values and grade them on each one, basically saying they're a fit, they're exemplary, they're in opposition to, they're not really consistent with, something like that. You can do a numerical scale. You can do however you want. But if they're not a fit, the answer is no. If they are, and it looks good, then you invite them in for the next interview. But we always have 2 people during that interview, because I want to make sure that my biases and stuff don't get in the way, that we have the opportunity to discuss it and say, hey, I saw this, and maybe I didn't, maybe they did, about the answer, good or bad, and be able to reconcile that. We want to make sure on the scoring scale that we're no more than 1 step apart. If we're more than 1 step apart, then we have to have that conversation, and we have to also, our policy is we have to convince the other one that that's the right answer, at least to move close enough so we're 1 step. If we're not, then then something's probably wrong with the system. What you're doing at that one is really figuring out who they are, not their clinical skills, not all the other stuff, but who they are as a person. Are they a fit with your company in a cultural sense? You can refer to that A player video to think about, the people who live or don't live the core values versus those who hit their numbers and that type of thing. You want to have someone who's a cultural fit, and then you move them on to the next step being a task assessment. So you can even do that for an admin position or something, maybe prior to deciding whether you want to spend the hour or so having the discussion interview. And you want to spend time, by the way. You're trying to get to know this person. They're going to be part of your team. They're going to be in your business 40 hours or more a week, working with everybody else on your team, their impacts, their implications there. Make sure you spend the time with the right people, spend enough time to really get to know them and assure yourself that they're the right person. So the task assessment for a therapist is pretty straightforward. Do an evaluation. Have them do it on one of the staff. Have, again, two people observing and watching. One of them can be the patient. If you're smaller, it can be a therapist who's actually, acting as the patient. You can mock up something. Most of us have something going on at any given time, so we can actually do a real eval. We tend to standardize it, and just so we can compare, but really looking for patient rapport, communication skills, clinical decision making, how well they communicate and sell the patient on the plan of care, convince them that this is the best place for them if it is, and if it's not, refer them to the right provider. So we're really looking at that, and if they're not the right fit after that, nope, you say goodbye. If stuff looks good, and maybe it's not even their clinical skills rather are perfect, but clinical skills you can teach. So if they are a really good fit and they have good thought process and they need a little bit of brushing up on handling skills or on what tests to do in sequencing, you can teach that stuff. So that might still be somebody you want to bring on, just understanding that you're going to have to do some more mentorship and that type of thing. If they pass that, go to references. You got to check references. A couple of them have to be former employers. And I can't tell you how many times therapists have left and how very, very few times I've ever been called for a reference for a physical therapist. Everybody seems to be afraid, especially out here in California, about litigation and saying the wrong thing. Super simple. I learned this one as well from somebody. The thing to ask, what you're trying to do is call the reference at a time when they're not going to answer the phone. Okay, so if they're a PT, if they're a physical therapist treating, then maybe 10 a.m., 11 a.m. on a Wednesday, you think they're probably going to be busy. Call and leave a message then, and the message says, hey, so-and-so applied for a job at San Francisco Sport and Spine Physical Therapy for a physical therapist position. Will you, my name's Sturdy McKee, will you please give me a call back? Magic question. Will you please give me a call back if they're an excellent candidate? Thanks. Leave your phone number. If they don't call back, give the candidate a chance. Give them a call back. Tell them the references haven't called you. But after they hound them for a couple days and nobody's called you back, that's a sign. And it's a safe sign. Okay? And if they are an excellent candidate, they will call you back. So then you get to talk a little bit about job history, where do they need work, what other stuff, but you're only going to be talking to people who are enthusiastic about that candidate, which is also very positive, saves you a ton of time. Then the offer. Have a structure for your offer. So they pass the references, right? Pass the posting, the phone screen, the interview, first interview, the task assessment or second interview. References are good. Now the offer. You want to talk to them more about what the job is. Have a structure, have a paradigm. This shouldn't be a fresh negotiation every time where you get completely frustrated. There should be a salary range and a way for them to advance and the other benefits explained. And in our case, I have somebody else explain the benefits package and stuff to them because they're more up to date on it. They know more of the details. Including more people throughout the process gets more opinions, feedback into the whole thing. So ultimately, the offer is also an opportunity for disqualification. If you're only recruiting people based on the amount you can pay, are you really building that team and culture and the purpose, the values, and all the rest of it around your business? There ought to be other things that are not just top-line monetary that are appealing to your candidates and the members of your team. So make sure that you have a full package, a full explanation, a structure to take the stress off of you so that you can do it a few times and then you can iterate on it. Of course, if it's not working, it wasn't a good one, move to the next one. And then you get an acceptance. If they don't accept, they'll self-select out. That's probably a good thing. They've gone through all this. They've gotten to know you. You've shown them. You've been pretty transparent. You've explained all the pieces and parts and other team members and moving parts. If they accept, then they've qualified themselves after all this. You want that. That's a good sign. Then you go to the probation. There should be an induction process, training, teaching further about the core purpose, values, all the other things about the business, operations, EMR orientation, KPIs, all these things that you can do over the first several weeks, including the job accountabilities and the things they ought to be competent in. You have somebody train them. A week later, have somebody else check them off, make sure that they can actually do that thing. If they do, great. If they don't, how many times are you going to teach them? If you do it 2 or 3 times and they still can't perform and do that thing, save yourself a lot of time and anguish, and you might be able to cut ties earlier rather than later. And ultimately, if they pass all that, now they're part of your team. If you really take people through this process, what kind of team do you think you're going to have? You're going to have folks who are awesome, and it's just going to be a joy to go to work. Hope that was helpful. Hit me back if you need any more information about this, both here at the Facebook page and at SturdyMcKee.com. Thanks.